What's going on, YouTubers? I want to take this time to talk about the Rosetta Stone and its significance to archaeology and history, but I also want to take this time to talk about ancient Egypt, one of the great kingdoms of the ancient world. And I think that there's going to be a lot of connections between what we find in actual history and biblical history. I think the two are synonymous, and the finding of the Rosetta Stone is a very interesting find. In 1822, we finally deciphered what ancient hieroglyphics actually mean. The language, we decoded the language and found out that it was a phonetic language. One of my professors at school, Dr. Ayling, actually taught ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics at the University of Minnesota. And he was also on the documentary Patterns of Evidence by Mr. Mahoney, talking about the biblical Exodus. Now, people say that, from around 2200 BC or 2700 BC was when the pyramids were beginning to be constructed. It's a long time ago, and I don't know if I'm fully there with their exact dates, but yes, the pyramids are a very interesting construction, and they tell a very interesting story. And also, the destruction of Egypt as proclaimed in the book of Exodus is very interesting. So we're talking about a kingdom that stretched potentially from 2700 BC, which is some years probably after Noah's biblical flood, to 200 BC, right? And the fall of Egypt, and basically Greek culture mixed with Egyptian culture, and Egyptians kept their ethnic identity, but they were ruled by the Greeks. And I just think that it's interesting when we find this stone, within the last 150 to 170 years, we've got to read what's written on their walls. And if you find other YouTubers out there, they're talking about different things that show biblical characters, biblical people written in the Egyptian language, the Egyptian hieroglyphics. And I just think that as we discover more things, potentially we will find more things correlated to the biblical Exodus and what God did to ancient Egypt. Moses' story takes place towards the beginning, I would say, of the Egyptian Pharaoh's reigns, empire, right? We're talking about a time period of history that's almost 2,000 years. It's a very long time to have a kingdom, and it's very ancient, it's very mysterious. Their gods were not like our God, Yah, and I think that, looking at Moses' story, he had an Egyptian name, Moses, to draw out, and he was the deliverer of the Jews from Egypt. And I'm just kind of waiting for the day when we find things that are on written stone that are actually on written parchment, on written lamb hide, the story of Exodus and the story of the Jews, not only coming to Egypt, but leaving Egypt as well. That's why I talked a little bit about the burial place of Joseph, what I believe is Joseph. It depicts a foreigner who was buried near the land of Goshen. Scientists and archaeologists call it something different than the Joseph tomb. It's the Avarice tomb, I'm pretty sure is what it is. And so there is evidence to the biblical Exodus, and the fact that we know ancient hieroglyphics now, I think, will give more proof to what happened in the biblical Old Testament and what happened to the Jews under the pharaohs of Egypt. Their slavery, their deliverance, and their relationship after. I know Hezekiah, his bulla, has Egyptian symbols on it. And so even the kings of Israel had specific ways of communicating with the pharaohs of Egypt. When they sent letters, a bulla would basically give your imprint to the king that you're sending, or the pharaoh you're sending information to, meaning this is from Hezekiah to the Egyptian pharaoh. And so yes, Solomon had relationship with Pharaoh's daughters. Hezekiah had relationship with the kingdom of the Egyptians. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of interesting connections between Egypt and the biblical Old Testament, and specifically the Jewish people. So I think the video's getting long enough. I hope you like my thoughts, and like basically what I'm trying to tell you is knowing what we know now about Egyptian hieroglyphics will potentially reveal more things about the biblical Exodus and the Jews in Egypt, and different things that correlates to. It potentially will reveal evidence of what we know and believe as Christians to be the truth, God's word. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, peace, my friends.